What if I told you there's a technique so powerful, so magnetic, that it can make any woman notice you without you even trying? A technique that separates the boys from the men. It's not about looks, money, or status. It's about mastering controlled silence. This is the ultimate weapon of seduction. The most powerful men in any room are not the loudest, not the most attention-seeking, and certainly not the ones constantly trying to prove themselves. The true masters of attraction, influence, and respect are the ones who understand the immense power of controlled silence. The man who can remain composed, who knows when to hold back, and who understands the impact of a well-placed pause commands attention effortlessly. Silence is not about being passive or withdrawn. It's an intentional act of control, a deliberate method of communication that forces others to lean in, to seek, to wonder. It is the difference between being just another voice in the crowd and being the man whose words resonate deeply when he finally speaks. A quiet man is not invisible, he is undeniable. A man who can master silence is a man who is always in control. He does not react impulsively to provocations, he does not fill awkward silences with meaningless chatter, and he certainly does not over-explain himself. He lets the world come to him. This control extends beyond social settings. It manifests in relationships, business, negotiations, and even personal discipline. The ability to hold back, to remain unmoved when others are scrambling for validation, is one of the rarest and most powerful traits a man can cultivate. Women notice this immediately. They notice when a man is completely secure in himself, when he doesn't need to constantly seek approval or reassurance. The loud man, the one who is always talking, always boasting, always trying to impress, exposes his insecurities without even realizing it. But the man who listens more than he speaks, who chooses his words carefully, and who allows his presence to create intrigue, that is the man they cannot ignore. There is an undeniable mystery in silence. When a man speaks too much, he removes all curiosity. He leaves nothing to the imagination, nothing for a woman to wonder about. But when he holds back, when he allows the right moments to reveal who he is, he becomes intriguing. Mystery breeds attraction. The human mind is drawn to things it cannot immediately understand, and a man who understands how to control what he reveals and when he reveals it becomes irresistibly magnetic. Beyond attraction, silence cultivates an aura of dominance. Not in the sense of arrogance, but in the sense of self-assured authority. A man who doesn't need to fill every moment with words exudes confidence. He is completely at ease in his own presence. Most people feel uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it, to smooth over the awkwardness. But the man who can sit in that silence without discomfort demonstrates an unwavering self-possession that is rare and valuable. This principle applies in professional environments as well. The man who waits before speaking in meetings, who listens carefully before offering his perspective, and who speaks only when necessary, earns far more respect than the one who constantly interjects, desperate to be heard. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. People pay closer attention because they know you don't waste words. They know that when you speak, it is because you have something truly valuable to say. In negotiations, silence is a weapon. The ability to hold back, to let the other party speak first, to resist the temptation to fill gaps in conversation. This is the key to influence. Many people, when faced with silence, feel the need to explain themselves further, often giving away far more than they intend. The man who understands the power of silence allows others to reveal their intentions, their weaknesses, and their desires before he even needs to say a word. This is also true in conflict. The man who reacts emotionally, who raises his voice, who rushes to defend himself or prove his point, is easily manipulated. But the man who remains calm, who does not react immediately, who lets others reveal their own lack of control, he is the one who always holds the advantage. Silence forces the other person to face themselves, their own words, their own emotional outbursts. It shifts the power dynamic entirely. Self-control and restraint are at the core of this ability. It is not simply about not speaking. It is about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. It is about being deliberate in every interaction. It requires patience, observation, and a deep understanding of human psychology. The man who can harness this skill is the man who controls every room he walks into. When it comes to relationships, controlled silence is one of the most effective ways to build intrigue and attraction. A man who is constantly available, constantly explaining himself, constantly seeking to reassure a woman that he is interested, paradoxically diminishes his value. But a man who gives just enough, who remains somewhat of a mystery, who allows her to lean in rather than always being the one to pursue, he is the one who stays on her mind. This does not mean playing games or being manipulative. It means understanding the fundamental truth that people value what they must work for. When you are too easily accessible, when you reveal everything immediately, you remove the element of curiosity. But when you hold back, when you allow things to unfold naturally, you increase your perceived value. Even in simple day-to-day interactions, the way you use silence can determine how others perceive you. The man who answers questions too quickly, who rushes to fill in details, who immediately jumps to respond, comes across as less sure of himself. But the man who pauses, who takes a moment to think before he speaks, who allows the weight of his words to settle before continuing, he commands far more respect. Silence also enhances the power of eye contact. When you hold eye contact in silence, without rushing to break it, without nervously filling the space with words, you create an intensity that is impossible to ignore. Eye contact, combined with controlled silence, draws people in. It communicates confidence, dominance, and certainty without a single word. In social settings, the man who observes more than he speaks often understands more than anyone else in the room. He picks up on the small details, the unspoken cues, the body language that others overlook. He is always aware, always calculating, always in control. He sees what others miss. This level of awareness is invaluable. It allows him to navigate conversations more effectively, to understand people on a deeper level, to anticipate moves before they are made. He does not react, he responds, and he does so only when he chooses. The man who masters silence does not fear it, he embraces it. He understands that silence is not emptiness, it is presence, it is power. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, notice how quickly you feel the urge to speak. Notice how often you rush to explain yourself, to fill in gaps, to avoid silence. Resist that urge. Hold back. Observe the reaction. Watch how people lean in, how they become more engaged, how they become the ones who seek you out instead of the other way around. Women notice this. Colleagues notice this. Strangers notice this. When you master controlled silence, you become someone who does not chase, but is always pursued. This is how you separate yourself from other men. This is how you become the man who commands attention without demanding it. The man who is never overlooked. The man who controls the frame, the environment, the entire dynamic, simply by understanding when to speak and when to let silence do the work for him. The ability to master silence is the ability to master presence, influence, and power. It is the single most underrated technique any man can possess. And the moment you learn to harness it, you will never be the same again.